made a recent appearance on a favorite podcast, so I thought I'd share it here. I've listened to the Polykill Podcast for a few years now. It's a gaming podcast that celebrates playing video games, beating video games, and having fun along the way. They were doing a community-focused episode outside of their normal format, so I was thrilled to take part. Please enjoy the interview.
Today, I'm talking to a very good friend and a very wonderful guest. Who do I have here with me?
Hello, my name is Top. I go by TopSpot123 most places on the internet.
Glad to have you on to talk about some games, Top Spot. But before we get into any of that, I have to ask, one, generally, where might people be most familiar with you from the internet? And then two, how did you first hear about Polykill? How did you ever come across our path?
Perfect. So the place where I have the biggest, what you might call a following, would be my YouTube channel. So I've been doing that for quite a long time, but consistently for 5 years, at least one new post every month. So that's where most people know me from. I'm kind of trying to reach out from there. So I'm a little bit active on Twitter. I'm becoming more active on Discord, especially in the Polykill Discord. And how I found out about Polykill, actually, it's kind of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and I discovered the Cartridge Club. And so after discovering the club, I kind of discovered this little award-winning podcast off to the side. I thought I would check it out, and kind of it's kind of hard, to start a new podcast, but I gave it a shot, a few tries, and it didn't take long till I was an avid listener.
Yes. And then sometime later they changed hosts and he decided to stick around. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But it helps that I was already watching that guy on his Twitch channel, so it wasn't that big of a thing. I didn't have to learn him from the ground up. I'd already been watching him.
This is true. I'm trying to remember when I first came across UTOP. I feel like it's the inverse friend of a friend of a friend. My earliest memory is the interview that you did on Drunk Friend, which is another show on the network, but it may have been before that. I'm not entirely sure. Either way, glad to have you on.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, I got to ask, what are you playing these days? What have you been working on? Maybe you haven't quite hit those credits yet. You don't know who made it, but you're getting close.
Well, it's kind of unfortunate. The opportunity to chat came up, but I am in the middle of an arid dry spell gaming-wise. I've been trying to find time. It's been a very bad month specifically for me. Not a lot of time, so that's why I've been playing vicariously through your streams and through the beat tweets. I inch forward on a few different games, but I don't think I've had a controller in my hand honestly in 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean I don't have things I want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean that is 2 weeks. I'm trying to think if I've ever gone 2 weeks without playing a game. And as sad as it sounds, I don't know that I have in any recent memory, other than maybe vacations or something. But
yeah, it's highly unusual for me too.
Which I wouldn't believe, because you're talking on the internet as if you've been playing stuff. You're producing high quality content. So,
well, thank you.
What have you been maybe beating recently? What's some of the games that you have played but have finished in the near past?
Well, I kind of wanted to specifically talk about a couple of beats that I had a couple months back. Yeah. You were recently streaming Mole Mania. It was like a confluence of things here. And so what I brought is a game that I beat a few months ago that I just found to be very good. And I'm going to pitch it to you. I'm going to sell it to you and try to get you to give it a shot at some point.
All right.
So you were playing Mole Mania. You came on to Polykill to discuss it a little bit back, and you had a very, very efficient way of describing what you liked about it, how it was able to add some complexity without adding scope.
Yes.
Just added little features here and there, but it still remained, from the top-down view, all one screen, and you could just kind of suss out what to do. Mm-hmm. And the way you described it was very, thrilling to me. I had been watching you stream it anyway. But I thought you described it so well. But that same thing kind of also describes a game that I had been playing, and I've already pushed it on you a little bit over on Twitch. But we're gonna kind of broadcast it out here, just because I had such a good time playing it. So
I suspect I know what it is, but
yes.
I'm happy to expose more people to it. So please go on.
Okay. So, as far as the top-down puzzle game genre, you went right into Quirk after that, and then Trav, he brought Boxel to a recent Polykill too. So it's like everything was like coming together to allow me to discuss. I had played on mobile Slayaway Camp, and I know that you're not super familiar with it. So would you like me to describe it?
I would love to learn more. Yes.
Okay. So, like these other games we've talked about, it is a top-down puzzle game. Aesthetically, it's very cute and cartoony almost. And it's all the characters are made out of kind of 3D pixels, kind of like voxel based, right? Okay. Almost like a higher resolution Minecraft characters. So they're these cute little block based guys, but the game is a parody while also being an homage to 80s era slasher movies. So hence the name Slayaway Camp. So you are actually a masked killer, and it is your goal to go through and kill all the camp counselors on the screen. And so it's an odd mix because of the cutesy graphics, but it's very, very gory. Lots of pixelated blood. And just overkill for the kills for the sake of humor, right?
Yeah. So does this end up playing, we talked about Momania, we talked about Boxel, and they all are like essentially Sokoban with maybe a little bit of a twist. Is this also Sokoban, or how does the puzzling come into play? So
the puzzling, it's not Sokoban because you're not really pushing blocks. It's a little different than that. It is based on a puzzle game type that has shown up as a mini game in various forms. So your character, you can move in any of the 4 cardinal directions. It's all grid based, and like I said, it's all one room. So the rooms could be as small as 6x6, 8x8. These are not overwhelmingly large rooms. But when you choose any of the 4 directions to move, your character goes as far in that direction as possible before he stops. So you can't stop in steps. You go to the extreme of where, like if you hit a wall or something like that. And so by sliding around the room in this manner, you have to get yourself lined up to be able to kill the people in the room. And then after killing everybody in the room, there's also like a pentagram portal on the ground. You have to also be able to make it to that portal. So that's kind of somewhat of planning ahead, because it might be in a place where you needed to kill this guy last so that you're lined up to make it to the portal.
This is making a little more sense, and it's bringing it back a little bit. So the way I think of this, which is maybe even more of a deep track than Slayaway Camp, is it reminds me of the ice levels from Chip's Challenge, but in that game you can get ice skates and move around freely at some point. But
right.
Maybe a more contemporary example would be like the Ice Temple in Zelda, something like that.
Yeah, this same puzzle type does show up in various games. I know for sure it's in the first Skylanders game. Just as a mini game, it's often used as a mini game, and it has been used in Zelda dungeons where you enter a room and the floor is all ice, and you maybe have some pillars or something to move. But when you push one, it slides all the way until it hits the end of the ice. And by pushing them around, you've got to line them up in a certain way to be able to like traverse over the tops of them or whatever. So you've got to get them close enough to each other that you can hop from one to the other. It's been used there. I feel like it may have been used as a mini game in a Ratchet and Clank. I'm not positive about that, but it showed up many, many times. But for this game, that is the meat of the game. But they've added enough new things to it that I haven't seen when it was used as a mini game before. Just like a lot of games do, and a lot of mobile games do, it's that one new feature in the next set of puzzles, and then they make all kinds of use of whatever new thing they've added. So early on, it's all kind of roped off, but then later on, like you'll be on a dock, but your character can't swim, so you can't slide off into the water. So you can only slide off to where there would be a fence there or something like that. Eventually, they add campfires and holes that you can't go over across, so you've got to avoid these obstacles.
Okay.
One of my favorite things they added, which it just seems inconsequential, but it works so well within the game. There'll be any kind of, it's a piece of furniture. It could be a refrigerator or a bookcase. It's just standing there upright in the room. And if you hit it on one of its two sides, it will wobble and fall over. And it falls over one block away from you. So now you've got a new block in the room in a new location. But where you're standing, you can no longer stop at that point because the block in front of you is now clear. So you have one chance to stop on that one block. And it's very interesting. And also that's used in kills too, because if you've got a guy behind it, it will fall and crush them. So that is sometimes used in the kills too. I played it on mobile, but it was a popular enough game. It's actually on every platform. It's on the Switch. It's on Xbox and PlayStation. All different price points. There's a free-to-play version available on mobile as well. So I know people hear mobile and kind of want to shy away from it because of, I'm not a fan of some of the monetary practices on mobile games.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, I didn't pay anything, and I never really butted up against a paywall at all. There are cosmetics and things available, and you can, and I intend to do this. You do have to make a purchase to unlock the last levels or whatever, but I played like for a couple of hours before ever hitting anything that was trying to nickel and dime me at all. So,
I mean, that's always refreshing to hear. It sounds kind of like the Mario Run sort of model. Like play a good amount and then eventually.
Except my download was free. That's the difference. Like I was waiting for it to lock me out of content or force ads on me, and it's hard to to review mobile because you can get mobile games from many different stores, and they all might have slightly different monetary practices. So I can't tell you for sure your experience would be the same as mine, but I didn't have any issues with it at all. But like I said, like right now on Steam, it's 75% off. It's like $2.24. It's like, super sale. Well worth it.
You've got me headed off to the Google Play Store right now.
It may be a good one for October.
Oh, I like where your head's at. And this does not actually have the license to any of these slasher franchises, right? Like this isn't explicitly a Friday the 13th game or anything like that?
Well, speaking of segues, after this game, they got the license to Friday the 13th, and their next game was Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle. So in that game, you're actually Jason. And it's more of the same. There aren't a whole lot of big twists on the new game. It's just more levels, which is great. There's a couple small differences, and Friday the 13th on Steam is free to play, and it's also multi-platform. It's available all over at many different price points. So it might be like $13 on the Switch or whatever, and I downloaded it free on Google Play. So
interesting. So do you have a preference between the two? Like, is there... Are they functionally very similar and you'll enjoy both if you enjoy one, or is there one that you lean towards?
They are very, very similar. I think the second one, the Friday the 13th, they had the benefit of having the experience of Maid King, the first one, so it might be a little bit, not quite as rough around a couple of the edges, but if you like one, you'll like the other. Neither one of them does too much great deal different. What I like about it, too, as far as being puzzle games, they're really good for pick up and play. They might not be the best to just sit and play for hours on end, right? You just play a few rounds here and there and whenever. The normal levels, we'll go back to Slayaway Camp here. You've got a set of like 10 levels for each. The conceit is that these are specific slasher movies. So the first one might be camp based, and then you'll have one that takes place in a hospital, and it'll just go through like a gambit, an amusement park, or different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when they'll add the different new mechanics they're going to add for that level and kind of have it themed in. Some of them you go through pretty fast. Some of them you will take some time. But then after that, there are extra puzzles beneath those. So then those start to get pretty hard. Now, I did beat tweets on both of these, but I'm nowhere near done on either of them because there's so many other puzzles that really crank up the difficulty. And even with the difficulty being cranked, like, I feel like if you fed this to a random number generator, it's eventually going to solve it. Like, all you can do is move in one of 3 or 4 directions. Like, that's all you can do through the whole game. So I wouldn't consider it to be as mechanically rich as like Mole Mania, But I found it to be a very good time, and I just want more people to know about it. If you are a kind of person that likes those kind of top-down puzzle games, these should be on your radar.
Great recommendations. And I always appreciate, Top, that you bring the lesser known, the less popular consoles specifically for the Polykill audience. You know, it's not really a secret that a lot of our listeners skew retro. We've got a decent number of collectors that listen, things like that. But you're always coming in with mobile games. You're coming in with VR stuff, multiple different VR headsets and things. So thank you for always keeping it fresh.
Absolutely. My brain chases novelty. So whatever that says about me, it doesn't matter. But
it's crazy. I looked these games up on the Google Play Store. Slay Away Camp has been downloaded 100,000 times, but this Friday the 13th game has been downloaded 10 million times. Like, it just goes to show how enormous. Like, when people talk about that, the scope of people that play games is so much bigger than you can like really comprehend or get a sense from on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. It's so true, because here's a game I'm very, very plugged into games, and other than, recognizing the name from talking to you, here's a game that 10 million people have played that is essentially completely fresh to me.
Right. And that's basically why I wanted to bring it. Now, they made another one after both of these called Slashy Camp, and it is the same format in an endless runner. But that one I haven't played, and I've played a few endless runners that I haven't liked some of their practices, like your daily quests and all that stuff. So I will play it. I already have it installed, but I don't give that a full recommendation. But check out the trailer; it looks pretty cool too.
Awesome. Well, that's two very good recommendations for folks. I got just to ask, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we move on to our next segment here?
The only thing is, and this is not meant to be self-promotion, because I can't for sure say this is going to happen, but I've been trying to push you into publishing YouTube videos. You've been trying to push me into streaming. It's just one of those things. But yes, if I do start streaming soon, these will be games that I'll be bringing to try to. I want to stream for two reasons. The selfish reason is I've got access to all these games. I need an excuse to play them and learn more about them, because I've got hundreds of PlayStation Plus games or Xbox Gold games that I just don't know anything about what they are either. So if I could stream an hour or two of each of them just to learn more about them myself, I think that would be a benefit to me. And then the selfless reason would be I want to show people what I think are cool games. Like, we can learn together that it was a cool game, or it's like, I know this game that some people out there will like if they could only find out about them. So that's the selfless reason I want to stream.
I 100% agree with that. I'm pretty similar in my stream, but from a completely different approach. I like to try to bring stuff that I think most people haven't heard or haven't played before. And here you are planning to bring a whole bunch of stuff that I have nowhere near on my radar. So yes, 100% guilt Top into streaming more. I've attended several of Top's test streams, and even those were entertaining. So check out TopSpot123 on Twitter, on Twitter, but on Twitch as well.
Thank you so much.
But that's all the kindness I'm going to offer you, because it's hot seat time, baby. It's time to put those cheeks in it. Are you ready?
It feels like a test I didn't study for.
That's how it feels every time. I actually think you won't leave too singed. But first up, what's the worst stomachache you've ever had?
And we'll leave the interview there. If you want to hear more or learn more about Polykill or any of the other programs on the Poly Media Network, check out the link below. A big thank you to my interviewer Steve, otherwise known as Blinkoom on Twitch. If you check out his streams, you'll often find me there in the chat. And also, thanks to Trav for allowing me to post this. And lastly, a big thank you to those who made it this far. You are the people I appreciate the most. Feel free to let me know any feedback below. Be safe and take care.